Yeah, see?
What we have here this morning is an illustration of three-dimensional printing. Everybody sort of knows what that is, but I'm going to show you today how this has revolutionized brain surgery. One of our life-saving operations now is something called a decompressive craniectomy, where if you have a bad stroke, you have a lot of brain swelling, and we actually remove a piece of the skull so there's room for the brain to swell out. This actually saves lives. The only problem is, after it's all over, you've got a big defect, a big hole in your skull. The skull is no longer available. It's been discarded, or let's suppose you had a gunshot wound to the head where the skull was shattered. So now you're walking around with a caved-in skull, and the challenge is to produce a new skull that will fit perfectly in place.
That's actually the plastic. This is the roll of the plastic here.
Sometimes, Dr. Barson called me up and said, in 2 days I have surgery, here's the images, can you do it? So what we do, we take the MRI that's been acquired in the MRI, from the MRI scanner, from the patient, and we transfer the data here to our computer. And then we have some software that, as you see on the screen on the right, takes away the skull, takes away everything but what we are interested in. This here is the brain. And then we feed it in another software, and this is what you see here on the left. And this is the software that communicates with the printer. And this will calculate how to actually slice up that model, the 3D model here, into these different layers that are then being deposited on the plate here, on the build plate of the 3D printer.
These white tubes here are the plastic, and once heated, this can take up to 16 hours to print an image of the patient's brain.
Let's not forget, the skull protects you against trauma. So we're all bump our heads and bang our heads and bonk our heads 3 or 4 times a day. And if you didn't have a skull and you hit that area of your scalp, you could injure your brain. So you want to put the skull back to protect the brain and protect the inside of the head. And you want to put it back in a way where there's no gaps, where there's no bumps, where there's no lumps, because if you hit those bumps or lumps, it could in turn produce trauma. This person has a tumor that's invading into the motor areas of the brain.
This is a real person.
This is a real person's brain. This is a piece of plastic. This is an MRI made of a real person and a 3D print made of that person's brain. And the tumor has been constructed in a way where it's the whole. When a person comes in with a brain tumor, of course they're frightened to death. They think they're going to die. They think their life is over. It's actually not true. But I can now sit and explain to that person what we're going to do. I can now say, look, here's where the tumor is. Yes, I know you've been told that you're going to be paralyzed, but actually here's your motor area right in front of the tumor. So this is what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to do it. This is the angle I'm going to come in at. And having that kind of peace of mind for a patient to understand that the doctor can actually hold in his hand a three-dimensional representation of their brain and actually be able to sit and think and talk about how they're going to do it is life-changing. Yeah, and it puts the person in so much of a better frame of mind. We all know that positivity, feeling confident in what you're going into makes a big difference.